Winter tends to highlight the problem of hitting the ground before the golf ball for many golfers. But in this video we're going to look at whether hitting the ground is essential at all. Does the club even need to hit the floor? Now I've hit a number of shots, and using GC2 HMT to measure those shots, I've been able to determine where I was hitting the golf ball on the face. Now the first batch of shots I tried to hit right in the centre of the club, and the second batch of shots I'm just hitting slightly underneath these two dots here. Now those dots are basically representing where the sweet spot is vertically, and if the ball hits that line it would suggest that the club has interacted with the ground, which it did on that batch of shots. And if the strike is underneath this horizontal line here between the two dots, it would suggest that the ground wasn't interacted with, and in these batch of shots there was basically no interaction with the club and the ground at all. So first of all, let's look at the top right hand corner of the screen here, the red indicating the strike pattern for the low strike, and obviously the yellow highlighting where the ball was struck for the higher strike. Now if you look at the efficiency ratio, interestingly here, 1.27 and 1.27 for the low strike, so the club to ball speed ratio was the same, so I wasn't really losing any ball speed from striking the golf ball underneath the centre, those strikes where the club didn't actually hit the floor. And if we move over to the far right of the data set, something that's really interesting is attack angle. Now with the centre strike where the ground was struck, 5.3 degrees of a descending blow on the ball, so hitting down on the golf ball, and then with the low strike, pretty much 5 degrees of descending blow on that as well, even though the ground wasn't hit at all. Now there is a slight discrepancy with head speed, not exactly sure why that was, but 93 miles an hour pretty much for the centered strike and just over 94 miles an hour for the low strike. So we'll bear that in mind when we come to look at the ball data. So looking at the ball data, ball speed 118.3 for the center strike, and the low strike got 120. Carrying yards, center strike 164, 168 for the low strike, total 169 versus 173. So as the data shows, this isn't an opinion, this is a measured fact that actually hitting the ground isn't really that essential. It doesn't make that much difference to the performance of the ball, if any. So for the golfers out there that do struggle with hitting the ground before the golf ball in the winter months, you've really got to ask yourself the question as to why you're hitting the ground. And if you're using somewhat game improvement clubs, you're going to find that the centre of gravity on those clubs is even lower, so the sweet spot's a little lower on the face. It's even going to be even less of an advantage to hit the ball higher up on the club face. So interacting with the ground with the clubs with the lower centre of gravity, it's not really essential at all. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that if we don't hit the ground, we're not actually hitting down on the golf ball. But as you saw in the data there, those low strikes that I was hitting where the ground wasn't hit, there was a descending angle of attack by about 5 degrees. If you've got any questions about the information in this video, feel free to get in touch with me in the comments box below, and I'll be sure to get back to you with any of your inquiries. And if you decided to take this information and put it into practice, I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments as well.